House for the first time in a year and a half. It's great to have all you guys back. Brian Goldsmith, of course, is a media and political consultant, as a former journalist. For years, he worked alongside Katie Couric for all her top political interviews, and he served as an informal advisor to Pete Buttigieg's campaign. Areva Martin is an attorney, activist, and author, and she's got a new book coming out. It is called Awakening: Ladies, Leadership, and the Lies We've Been Told. It's about 6,000 pages. John Kobylt is one of the most successful conservative radio talk show hosts in the history of California. The John and Ken Show airs weekdays on KFI AM 640 from 2 to 6 p.m. and is available on the iHeartRadio app statewide. Welcome back to The Issue Is, friends. It feels like family's back in the house. Great to see all of you guys.
Great to see you.
Great to be here.
Yeah,
I bet you say that to all the guests.
No, it's true. And it's more true with some guests. It's very true with you guys. Let's go down the line, though. Big takeaway from this big week, the recall results. Brian.
COVID control is a winning issue for Democrats, both in terms of energizing their base, persuading swing voters, and also, if you're a Democrat, good to win and run in a plus 25 Democratic state.
Yeah, yes, it helps to have the numbers on your side. Areva.
I think the big takeaway is that despite some mistakes that Gavin Newsom has made, for the most part, the majority of Californians are happy with the state of California. We have some of the highest vaccination rates. We have some of the lowest infection rates of COVID-19. We have a $50 billion plus surplus, and the state is doing well. Of course, there are issues. Of course, there are things that can be improved, but I think the crushing victory, the crush of the loss that Larry Elder suffered during the recall shows that Californians are pretty much happy.
Let me preempt John and challenge you on that premise. Do you think that everybody is happy? Or do you think that people really, really didn't want Larry Elder to be the governor of California?
Well, I think it's a little of both. Of course, everyone in the state is not really, really happy, but I think the majority of Californians are happy with the direction that the state is going. And of course, we did not want Larry Elder without any experience in running government, having never run or, run anything, less known a state the size of California. He wasn't qualified to run this state, and the voters told him as much.
John, your takeaway from this week.
Larry Elder and the state of California are two entirely separate issues. No, a lot of people are really unhappy, and they've got good reason to be. The homelessness in L.A., just open your eyes. Do Democrats really want to live like this? Because it's disgusting here in L.A., and it's disgusting in San Francisco. So to say that they're happy, and that's why they voted for Gavin Newsom, implies that they are happy with the living conditions, which I find gross and intolerable. Just me. Are they happy with a school system in L.A., which is not only one of the worst in the country, but was closed down for 16 months in impacting minority kids? 80% of L.A. schools, minority kids. Are Democrats happy that all those minority kids didn't go to school for 16 months while Gavin Newsom's kids went to school since a year ago? See, this is the stuff that makes me crazy. Are Democrats happy that a thief can walk into a Walgreens and steal $1,000 a day, and we've seen it on video, it's happening? Is that what Democrats are happy about?
Well,
Areva? Let me respond to that. What we are happy about is the direction that the state is going in. And you can be happy about the direction and the trajectory of the state while recognizing that the state has problems. And it's very curious to me that Republicans care about minority kids. Because if you cared about minority kids, you would step up on so many issues that impact minority communities. We don't see you stepping up on issues like the George Floyd crime bill. We don't see you stepping up on the infrastructure bill. We don't see you stepping up on so many
policies. You're changing the subject. Let's talk about the schools.
I'm not changing the subject.
LA schools are a disaster.
I'm not changing the subject at all. I'm talking about the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. You want to throw minority kids into the mix, but when minority kids are at issue, when they're jeopardized by the policies of Republicans,
the Democrats claim that they are the advocates for the minority kids.
Keep minority kids out of your mouth until you're ready to step up.
John, real quick.
No, I really want to know, if you claim you're an advocate for minority kids, how do you close the schools down for 16 months? How do you live with the worst school district in the nation?
I don't have to claim I'm an advocate for minority kids. I'm a parent of minority kids, and my work speaks for itself. I've been fighting on behalf of all kids, particularly minority kids, for the majority of my career. And I don't think you or many Republicans can say the same.
I'm not a Republican.
Brian,
first of all, I'm not a Republican, but I'm not talking about Republican, Democrat. I'm looking at the issue. Yeah. The issue is what should have been debated during the campaign, and it wasn't.
The issues that you raised, John, I think could potentially be powerful weapons in the hands of the right alternative. The challenge for Republicans in this state is they keep putting forward candidates like Larry Elder, who are unelectable in California.
That's why I said Larry is separate from these issues.
They are not putting forward a Charlie Baker like in Massachusetts or a Larry Hogan like in Maryland, who are Republicans coming from the center who can win in an overwhelmingly Democratic state. They are in their own little echo chamber.
Yeah, I know.
Talking to the same
They're terrible.
35%.
I've never belonged to the Republican Party, and I find the party in this state to be absurd. I'm happy with a Democrat who just addresses those issues, so why don't they? What's the downside to say we're not putting up with homelessness anymore? We're not going to put up with all the crime going
but
on.
the Democrats the Democrats are saying that.
Absolutely.
They are saying that.
And
The question is, are they
working on it as
But
well?
they've been in charge for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's a completely flawed argument to suggest that Democrats haven't been working from the state level to the local level. We can look at elected officials right here in the county of
It's
LA.
been 20
Mark
years.
Ridley Thomas, for example, has dedicated, the last couple of years in terms of addressing homelessness. Homelessness is a huge problem.
There's a lot of
that's
addressing.
multifaceted,
There's very little action.
complicated,
Right. Well,
and you can't just point to one
and we're
issue and talk about
and we're going to spend $12 billion this year on homelessness, and we'll see what will happen.
We gave them $3 billion
on it.
in an extra tax, and it got worse.
So a question going forward, Areva. There's different ways to interpret this if you're Governor Newsom, right? On the one hand, you could say millions of people tried to recall me. I'm humbled by that. On the other hand, you could say millions more voted for me, and I'm emboldened by that. I double down on what's already happening. Which way do you think he goes?
I think he should be emboldened. I think he should take what happened in this recall election, recognize it for what it was. It was some disgruntled Republicans who saw what they thought to be an opportunity to recall a very popular governor in a blue state. And they learned a lesson, which that's not possible to do in the state of California. Now, should he listen to some of the legitimate complaints that Republicans and others that voted against him may have? Of course he should. Every politician, anyone that represents an entire state, should listen to all of the constituents, not just one, facet of your base. And he should learn the lessons that he can learn from that. But at the end of the day, the victory was clear. It was convincing. The citizens of the state of California want Gavin Newsom to be their governor, and he is the governor today because of that very reason.
So one lesson ought to be reforming the recall laws. So
Thank
it's
you.
not so
Yes.
easy for a dissatisfied and embittered group of political opponents to put this thing on the ballot and cost the taxpayers $300 million. But for Gavin personally, he's now got to deliver on homelessness, on crime, on small business in order to broaden his coalition. And I think he heard that message.
And he acknowledged that when he spoke with me earlier this week. John, your thoughts. Where does he go from here?
Well, we've seen this guy going back 20 years to San Francisco. When I came to California in the 90s, San Francisco was the most beautiful jewel I'd ever seen. And now it's an open sewer. He was the mayor there for 8 years. Now he's been the governor for 3. And everything, all that's getting worse. And that's the stuff that really matters in people's lives. And I have not heard him not say. I'm sick of listening to hearing politicians say things. He hasn't done anything to make it better. All that stuff I mentioned before has gotten significantly worse.
Well, some of our viewers on KTVU in San Francisco might disagree with you saying that their city is an open sewer.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll go on a tour with
their
them.
behalf. I would just push back on that. All right. Well, great part of having you guys back in studio. We're going to have more in the next break, including talking about Larry Elder and the interview we did with him. But we've got some music. So we've got Bruno Mars playing now for Areva. Hopefully you can turn it up in here so we can see Areva's dance moves. I know John's got big
No
ones.
dance moves today.
We'll be back with more. The issue is right after this. You can't cheat on Gloria all the dance with there before.
All of you know that last year I got to run against the real Donald Trump. This year, the leading Republican running for governor is the closest thing to a Trump clone that I've ever seen in your state.
In the final rally of the Newsom campaign, President Biden tried to tie Larry Elder to Donald Trump. This happened in Long Beach. The question, where does the California GOP go from here? Back with our panel, Brian Goldsmith, Areva Martin, John Kobylt. John, you heard Larry Elder on our show a short time ago here on The Issue Is. What'd you make of what he said and where the party goes from here?
There barely is a Republican Party. I mean, I don't really know what that means, because what you had with these candidates were a bunch of freelancers, guys who want to be governor or want to increase their profile or are really pissed off at what's going on. But it wasn't organized. They weren't financed. They weren't endorsed. It was just guys who happened to be registered Republican who were running in the race. So I don't think the Republican Party is of any use, really. I wish something else would take its place and provide some organization and some financial muscle and get behind somebody who's rational.
Which is really an extraordinary thing to say when you think about the California Republican Party and its history. It produced Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Pete Wilson, George Duke Majan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all two-term governors not so long ago, and now it's producing Larry Elder, John Cox, and Caitlyn Jenner. This is fundamentally about who is the messenger as well as what is the message. And this ought to be, you know, the 15th or 16th wake-up call for the California Republican Party that they need to fundamentally change.
Areva, I was kind of struck by Larry Elder not saying he was going to run again and really acknowledging the real math challenges ahead. What did you make of what he had to say?
Well, I made a lot and then a very little about what Larry Elder had to say. And I'm going to agree with John on something. John said this was about a lot of folks who were running, some because they were disgruntled, but a lot of them to increase their influence. And when I listened to Larry Elder in the interview you did and in interviews he's done previously, I just see a guy that's trying to increase his influence. I don't see a guy who's done the work to get prepared to have the backing, the financial backing, the endorsements to really run a state the size of California. And that's troublesome to me. And the arrogance to suggest that people are not going to leave or they're going to stay in California because of him, I think that just speaks volumes about his ego and about his delusion in terms of, you know, what he means to the state and to the race. And if you're really serious about being in the race, go do the work, get in shape, get in position, and give us a real candidate that we can consider. And not just, you know, suggest that Democrats are too emotional to know the difference between a good candidate and a really, really bad candidate. And Larry Elder was a really, really bad candidate.
You know, some strategists talk about voter fraud before the election and say that that hurt Republicans. Ron Naring is an advisor to Kevin Faulconer. He said this during a Sacramento Press Club event to Jeff Corliss, an advisor to Larry Elder. Take a look.
That is bull and lying to Republicans, claiming an election was stolen before a single vote or result had been published is grossly irresponsible.
That's just simply not true.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's right here, buddy. It's right here.
Fake news, Ron.
Brian, your thoughts about talking about voter fraud could end up hurting Republicans. Also saying don't vote by mail could end up hurting Republicans.
Well, it's bad for Republicans. It's bad for the democracy first and foremost. But Republicans used to dominate among mail-in ballots. They kind of invented mail-in harvesting in the state. So they're really going after their own base in a lot of ways. But I think they're just, again, talking to themselves and not talking to the voters they need in order to win.
And John, you know, there's a lot of hope at the beginning of this that somebody like Kevin Faulconer would be what you're talking
that's
about.
who I voted
somebody
for.
who's more moderate. He lost big time.
Nobody ever heard of him.
So what do you think? I mean, if he does this again, and who knows if he will run again or not? Now he's saying he's reconsidering whether he will in fact run again. How does he do it differently the next time around? Can he?
Well, at least he's got a year this time. You know, going back to your point, you can't jump in 2 months before an election without an organization and without money. Now, Larry thought he was world famous and he could just fly in there. But he wasn't that famous. You have to understand when you're in talk radio or any kind of media niche, the people who watch you or listen to you, yeah, you're famous to them. But you're not famous outside the bubble. You know, a hit radio show gets 5% of the audience, which means 95% of the public has no idea who you are.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a lot of radio guys around the country who jump into a political race and end up falling flat on their face.
I would say two threshold issues quickly for Kevin Faulconer. One is, can he raise the money to actually do voter contact in the state of California? Number two, can he repudiate Donald Trump? Without that, the voters he needs will never listen to him.
And the most famous person in the race, by far, even more famous than Governor Newsom, Caitlyn Jenner, ended up polling among the worst of all the candidates as well.
Well, you leave the state in the middle of a race to go do a reality TV show.
After I saw her interview that you did in the first days, I knew she was going down.
Up next, what is this panel watching on TV other than the issue is? Thank you for the plug, John. This is Emmy Awards weekend. the chance to celebrate one of California's biggest industries. Ted Lasso on Apple TV Plus is deserving of the praise it is getting.
Don't I be intrigued? Not by you, and not by, howdy, y'all cowboys. My name is Ted Lasso, and I'm from Kansas. Wow.
They're naming a street after you.
I know. Deborah Vance Drive. It'll probably be a dead end with an abortion clinic on it.
Jean Smart is so funny, playing an agent comedian in Hacks on HBO Max. It's one of the many shows nominated for Emmys this weekend. Emmys weekend, big weekend for the state of California and our big industry, entertainment. Back with our panel, Areva Martin, Brian Goldsmith, John Kobylt. All right, around the table, John, let's start with you.
Oh, no, don't.
What's your favorite show on TV right now?
When I tell you, you always stare at me because it's never anything current. I don't watch any current TV.
Nothing at all? Haven't tried anything at all?
No, I go home and on my iPad, I watch old Johnny Carson shows and Dean Martin roasts and Don Rickles appearances and Rodney Dangerfield. Everybody's dead. And I watch their old performances, and it makes me really happy before I go to bed.
Okay. All right, Areva.
Okay.
Anything from,
See, I told
from the
you.
21st century.
Okay, my favorite show on television is Chicago PD.
Okay.
But I've been binging The Wire because after Michael William died, there was such an outpouring of love and support for him.
All right, Brian.
Well, in addition to Hacks, which I love.
Hacks is so fun.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And Jean Smart deserves like a Nobel Prize in addition to an Emmy.
Yeah.
I loved White Lotus.
Oh, yeah.
And Succession is probably my favorite show on TV, and I'm really excited for that to come back.
Well, clearly we have similar taste. Succession is the best show on TV, but Ted Lasso, in this moment of so much political polarization, bringing us together. It's so nice to have Ted Lasso on. All right, we say goodbye playing Hollywood Nights to celebrate the incredible work coming out of this town. Thank you all. Great to have you back in the building. Love all three of you. John Kobylt, Areva Martin, Brian Goldsmith, thank you. Larry Elder, thank you as well. Thank you for watching The Issue Is. We'll see you next week. Yeah.